Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very senior corporate leader from Mumbai, India, Mr. Pankaj Rai. Pankaj, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh. I'm based in Bangalore, although people would assume that if I'm in Aditya,
My
I should be in
apologies. I should
Mumbai.
have asked you. I just assumed you were in
Yeah.
Mumbai from Bangalore, India. Pankaj is the Chief Data and Analytics Officer of the Aditya Birla Group. He leads the group strategy on analytics and data science, enabling its varied businesses ranging from cement, chemicals, metals to fashion, retail, and financial services to enhance their decision-making capabilities using data science. Pankaj also enjoys long distance running, cycling, badminton, and meeting people. So, Pankaj, before we get into data and analytics, tell me about your journey and how has your journey in analytics and data science evolved?
Yeah, so let me start with briefly the life journey and then the analytics journey.
Yeah.
The life journey began on the day Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon. I was born in Lucknow on the same
Mhm.
day, and therefore my grandpa named me Apollo for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Grew up initially in a township in Gorakhpur. Dad used to work in a fertilizer company. Then we were in Delhi for 25 years and 20 years in Bangalore now. So that's been my sort of
Wow.
geographical progression.
Uh-huh.
As usual in those days, dad was an engineer, wanted to make sure the two sons were becoming engineers. So me and my son from a young age were told you guys got to go to IIT because he had gone to IIT Bombay. So
Mhm.
obviously parents are like that. So me and my dad has met all his objectives. So he met
Mhm.
this objective as well. Me and
Mhm.
my brothers were packed off. I didn't particularly enjoy engineering. So the next best option was to do an MBA, which is what I did at Ahmedabad. First job was in a consulting company, which is Feedback Ventures. Back in the day, consulting was
Yeah.
new. Then I ended up doing some banking with ICICI and GE Capital, and later on in Bangalore, largely in global companies, doing analytics for Dell, then with Wells Fargo, and now with the Birla Group, back to
Mhm.
Indian
Mhm.
corporate. So yeah, so I think
Amazing.
the journey has had no particular direction. I think the common theme has been that initially dad pushed me into careers, and later on friends pulled me into their companies. So, so what you see is really a set of accidents, and I can put a narrative on top of that, but it was
You're
all
being very
happening
modest. Okay.
organically.
Okay. And what got you interested in data analytics and data science?
I think I just get interested in anything that is presented to me. So there wasn't a particular, there is disinterest is well known, but I think interest just gets created. So for me,
Mhm.
there was disinterest in biology, there was disinterest in engineering, but the rest of it was interesting. So for me, analytics happened in Dell when someone in Austin, a colleague of mine, Jay Srinivasan, called me and said, we've been doing call center and all this kind of work. We should be doing data analytics in India. And would you like to do it? I said, yeah, sure,
Mhm.
bring it on. So
Okay.
that's how it began in 2007. And I
Mhm.
spent close to 9 years in Dell doing all of that. And then I kind of changed to Wells Fargo, another big US bank, where I actually left analytics for 6 years because I was doing something called digital those days, those Scrum teams, Agile, and all of that stuff was
Mhm.
this thing. And someone said, "Why don't you do this?" So I picked that up. And then Aditya Birla happened because a colleague of mine was leaving and said, "Why don't you come over here, Indian company? Lots of growth in India is going to happen. Why are you working for a global company? Come back here," or something like that. And I
Mhm.
agreed. So I think things have just happened, and I've just taken time and interest to build into whatever that role was. It wasn't as if I was terribly interested or capable, but I guess I just learned on the way.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you. You know, I'm at least one generation older than you. And I remember when I started with ITC, it was always 13 column sheets and computers came much later. So data analytics was really back of the envelope kind of thing in those days. Today, know how important it is. So my first question to you, Pankaj, is what role does data analytics play in transforming making processes in large conglomerates?
Yeah. So first of all, Ashu, having worked for so long, now I've started to have a different spin on some of these things, which is a question of our own identity on who we are and what we do. So
Right.
given that I have done so many things, I say, you know what? I'm a business guy whose job is to just improve business. Now, I
Hmm.
happen to do this through consulting or finance or analytics or what have you. But end
Hmm.
of the day, it has to be business. It should make sense. So one is
Hmm.
that sort of simple learning has come after a long time. So I tell
Hmm.
people, don't narrow our identity being that I'm an analytics guy or a marketing guy, because end of the day, it all needs to make business sense. So that's number one, that not get cowed down in the tool or a technology or a function that you are good at. End
Hmm.
of the day, it has to make an impact. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't matter, right? So
Hmm.
that's the thing that I've kind of learned and start talking about. But frankly, data is all about helping you take better decisions. In
Hmm.
fact, in many places, they are called decision science team, or someone will say, I am helping take better decisions. So
Hmm.
end of the day, data is enabling us to take better decisions. But I think the more important thing is what decisions you ought to take.
Hmm.
And many a times, if you are, just framing the problem wrongly, then
Hmm.
any amount of data will not lead you anywhere. So I
Hmm.
think it's what problem is worth solving is more important than how you solve it. So while data and technology and AI is enabling us to do a lot of better things, the
Hmm.
opportunity that I see is that how do you frame it better? How do you ask the right question?
Hmm.
So I think the opportunity set, if I can say so, over time is going to be more on identifying the right question, because the solution set is getting commoditized through good technology.
Well said. Well
But just
said.
to give some examples, I mean,
Yeah,
there are
please.
could be we have a cement company, Ultratech Cement. How do you optimize, cement transportation? Transportation is a huge important cost in cement.
Correct.
20,000 trucks are daily leaving the place. We have a aluminum company, Hindalco. 25-30% of the cost is in energy. So how do you make your energy consumption more optimal and more better?
Hmm.
In fashion and retail, targeting customers. In health insurance, reducing fraud. So I think the key is that in every business there are decisions being taken by folks which enable the business to become better. One,
Hmm.
you got to figure out which are those decisions which are high value decisions, and can you help them by taking those things better. And
Hmm.
many a time we are also able to automate it. So in many of these factories or manufacturing use cases, there are people who have been working in those factories. They, through gut feel, know what's going to happen.
Hmm.
There's this noise is coming, so I know I need to do this, or there's this smell is coming, or whatever. So through their own senses they have figured things out. But over time you can use their knowledge and past data to automate some of those things and enable them to take better decisions. And also, when newer people come in, they can be empowered because they don't have all the experience that the older guys had. So I think data is just creeping into everything and anything. So in my opinion, there will not be AI guys in future. AI will be like electricity. It'll be just so pervasive that we don't talk about electricity anymore. That I'm expert in that. So over
Correct.
time, I think all of us will be using AI or making AI, and therefore
Hmm.
this won't be a term anymore. Is my expectation.
Well said. Well said. Great response. And since you have given me some interesting examples, is it possible, if it is not confidential, to share an example and don't give me any industry where data-driven insights led to significant business decisions?
Yeah. No, I think all of the, I mean, they are very, there's nothing confidential about it. I think I'm sure everyone is trying to do it in their own way. I
Hmm.
think the trick is one in sort of getting everyone to adopt it. Frankly, these days, I think the technology is not the key. I think people are adopting it. So all that I do, I tell everyone in the industry, I said, can you adopt it? That's the problem. The model is out there. So it's
Hmm.
like, the car is out there. Are there enough drivers who can drive it? So that's the challenge. So just to take the, Hindalco aluminum, example, we have these smelters where you pour in bauxite and you
Hmm.
heat it up for 36 hours, and then the final product comes in. So in this process, what happens is that there are lots of sensors inside which can sense the temperature. But
Hmm.
imagine you have a pot in which temperature can vary. But if the temperature varies too much, the quality can be bad, and your
Hmm.
energy consumption can be high.
Hmm.
Now, while you have the machine and the manufacturing specifications have been given, we all know that the machines don't behave the way it is, just like your car won't behave. So the,
Right.
the person has to take some decision on what to do, why to do, and all of that.
Hmm.
So what we do is through those sensors and past data, we are able to say, you know what, I think in the next 6 hours, temperature spike is likely to happen. Can we now do something to prevent it?
Hmm.
By doing that, you have not only conserved energy and become better at ESG, but also become more productive. So I
Hmm.
think this is one example. I said about the transportation in Ultratech Cement, 20,000 trucks. Who knows who's going where? So which truck should go to which warehouse to which customer? You could take some better choices based on your
Hmm.
optimization model, which a human mind can't do.
Hmm.
How which route to take? Which sort of customers they should cover. The traveling salesman problem that we have all studied. So think about all of those things, and if you have to do it using data, you can do it much better than what 50 people in different plants and warehouses trying to do it. So I
Hmm.
think the examples are very many. I think wherever you are, you look at something, you say, hey, I'm doing it based on gut feel. If only I had past data and some other outside data,
Correct.
can I do it better? So today in transportation, we have fast tag data, which is the Indian government is spending a lot of effort in what they call digital public infrastructure, which means they are trying to make data available about public services and so on. So we are also able to bring that data and say what's going on. So if we can look at that fast tag data to say which are the high density routes, or where is
Hmm.
this going to be better or whatever, so we can use that data. So
Hmm.
essentially the analyst has to figure out this is the problem, how can I use my internal data, past data, outside data, and frame the problem in a way so that I can do it better. So it's really a
Yeah.
analytical problem solving
Mm,
approach.
mm.
Data and analytics tools are diametrically.
Amazing, amazing. And yet, my follow-up question for you, Pankaj, is that you are in very, very diverse businesses. Some of them are what I would call the older legacy businesses, and some of them are very, very new businesses. And I remember from my time when if you ever came into someone with something that was an old business, the first thing was, I know how this happens and this is how it happens here. How do you navigate challenge of culture across different and such diverse businesses across so many different countries?
Great question, Ashu. So I had the same question when I arrived at this job 3 years ago.
Hmm.
And I took inspiration from my time at GE, and Jack Welch used to be the leader then.
Yeah.
So one of the things he was very anal about at that point in time was Six Sigma and process improvement. Because at that point in time, he felt that if everyone can do process improvement, they can
Hmm.
do better than the next guy. And I think that
Right.
was good. So DMAKE, which is define, measure, analyze, improve, control, used to be the formula applied whether you are capital, whether you are engine, you are whatever. So
Hmm.
there was a common language getting the entire organization galvanized around a common theme. So
Hmm.
that idea, we took up. And frankly, early this year, some of us so we are a central analytics team who work across the group. So we are a sort of a incubation COE, and we help other group companies. We said, we've been working with these guys, we've been doing projects, we have been creating data platform, we have been helping them with talent, funding, and all, what have you. What have we learned? Is
Hmm.
there a DMAKE type framework we can come up with for ourselves as a group to say, hey,
Hmm.
this is what encapsulates all that we do, and all of us can just come align on that. So that framework was born this year, and we are trying to sort of utilize it. So we're calling it the 3W framework:
Hmm.
ways of thinking, ways of working, ways of doing. Very simple. How do you think? How do you operationalize it, and what do you do? And
Hmm.
then within that, we have broken it up. So ways of thinking has, your project should be derived from your strategy. You ought to have a governance. You've got to have an AI maturity model to see how you're doing. Ways of working is really about talent, funding, ecosystem adoption. You spoke about adoption. And the bottom is data science, data engineering, data architecture. So we
Hmm.
said, you know what, the bottom is very well known to us. We are all trained in it. We're doing it without even thinking. But
Hmm.
the other two is where the value is. Because if you just keep doing it, but it's not aligned to strategy, and it does not sustain and scale through your operating model, it won't work. So now what we are doing is we have examples of each of those 10 boxes that I mentioned to you.
Hmm.
And we are using the AI maturity model to say, let's do a self-assessment. How are we doing on talent, on
Hmm.
funding, on
Hmm.
ecosystem, on partnership, in data science and strategy? And
Hmm.
is it all coming together? So
Hmm.
in a sense, the analogy that I use being a marathon runner is that, my head and my cardio and my legs, all three need to be there for me to run a marathon.
Hmm.
My intent, which is the ways of thinking, and my limbs and my cardio is the one which sustains. So we got to have all the three in harmony. And the
Hmm.
term I'm using with my team members is to say, instead of thinking about yourself as a full stack developer, think of yourself as a full stack human being. You've
Hmm.
got to have the art and the commerce and the science
Hmm.
all put together to make change happen. So I think that's an idea. We
Hmm.
have lots of examples in all these boxes across the groups, and we are working with group companies to say, hey, you are good in this, but they are good in that. Can we all learn from each other and come together? So utilizing the DMAKE idea into this 3W framework to bring the organization together, helping them learn from each other, creating reusable components is the way to go.
Very well said. And how does one measure the success of a data analytics group, which I'm sure is viewed as a cost center? So, what is the way of measuring this?
Yeah. So I think, any enabling function, and we have a dozen of them: HR, finance, legal, all of them. So we all
Yeah.
sit together.
Hmm.
And frankly, you can ask the same question for any enabling function that, how
Correct.
do you measure the success of an enabling function?
Hmm.
So my idea, again, for my function, but I would feel that it's a generic idea that any function can do, is
Hmm.
to say that the central function is
Hmm.
an enabler and also a governance function. So they kind of make sure that people are within control and they don't go all over the place,
Hmm.
and enable in terms of best practice sharing and creating new ideas. So
Hmm.
if you think about these three functions, new idea creation, best practice sharing, and governing are the three things that whether you are HR, finance, legal, analytics, whoever, what you can do. So
Hmm.
to us, this 3W framework really represents that we have a AI maturity model which measures all the other 9 muscles. And we are saying, we will help you, we are the coach, we'll help you measure your muscles, we'll make you go from journey A to B. So that's one
Hmm.
measure.
Hmm.
Two, reusing components. So all of these things can be reused. So for us, a central team creates a set of reusable components. So the next guy who comes, the paint business which is being launched, they
Hmm.
can use all of it and accelerate their journey. So
Hmm.
for us, reuse of creating IP and reuse of IP is a good way to measure. And of course, the final measure is business impact. So if I
Mm.
didn't save energy and if I didn't save, transportation cost doesn't make sense. So I think there are a set of different types of measures, more at a high level, some at a micro level. But these are the measures that we are working with our businesses to say these are joint measures. You
Mm.
got to see value in this, and you need to see acceleration or improvement or innovation and things like that. So I think we have a set of measures on these lines which we
Yeah.
measure ourselves on and our team members on and our business stakeholders on.
Well said. Well said. Pankaj, my next question is on customer experience. And you are in many, many direct B2C businesses. What are some of the significant ways that data science has managed to enhance customer experience with a lot of your customers?
Yeah. So, first of all, I think $110 billion group, a large number of companies are actually B2B, and many of them are in
Yep.
commodity. So, if you look at Hindalco Aluminium or Ultratech Cement and all of that, so really, the customer experience largely sets into, I mean, it's there everywhere,
Mm.
but in the consumer businesses is where it becomes even more important, where you have millions of customers and you don't know all of them, versus, let's say, here, you have a set number of them. So, a lot of work that we do with our consumer businesses, which is fashion and finance, where some of these things that you talk about.
Yep.
But actually, we are also trying to do that in our B2B businesses, because
Okay.
sometimes when people say customer, people are always think consumer and not customer.
Mm.
And there's a large program, by the way, Sunita Bangar, who also you interviewed
Yep.
on this channel,
Mm.
has actually created a program called Mission Happiness. And the
Mm.
idea is, how do you create happy customers? So
Mm.
they, as a functional team on marketing, they have set up the framework and created a mechanism to say, how do you go to customers? What do you measure and all of that? And we, as the data science people, work with their team to enable mission happiness to happen. So
Mm.
we have now over the years, thanks to
Mm.
them, created small teams inside each business to say, you are the MH champion for your
Mm.
business. It's
Mm.
your customer. What would
Right.
you like to do? So we
Mm.
again there work as an enabler, and B2B
Mm.
businesses have a slightly different approach than a B2C business. So we
Correct.
again as a team enable marketing to create customer experience for them. So
Mm.
again, to your point, Ashu, many a time we tell people that we are not functional experts in everything. We work
Mm.
with the sustainability team, but our folks
Correct.
are not sustainability experts. We work with them. We have some sense. So I think our folks are, the two capabilities that are really relevant in our team is
Mm.
data science and data engineering. At the
Mm.
same time, we got to know many other things to make sure that this thing is applied in the right way. But we
Mm.
work with functional teams to make happen customer experience through Sunita, ESG and sustainability through Diksha, and so on and so forth.
Mm. Well said. And how do you manage to make sure that there is data security across so many different businesses, and you are the main reservoir of a lot of this data across the whole group?
Yeah. So first of all, Ashutosh, we don't try to be the sort of a central point, create a lot of stuff that we keep. We are in that more, deregulated cloud
Hmm.
model. So we help
Okay.
businesses do it in their own environment. We try not to keep anything with us so that we don't get into the problem of whose data is being used. So
Mm.
even if you have to do cross sell, upsell, any of those things, we try to enable companies to do it on their own. We
Mm.
don't want to be the sort of a shared service or a bottleneck at times to be in the center. So we
Mm.
act more as an enabler. Now, data security has different flavors in different businesses. So if you look at our manufacturing businesses, actually, I jokingly say there's the other problem. Many of the OEMs who supply factory equipments to us, their contracts with us actually says that we can't access our own data from those machines. So we've had to actually
Mm.
change the contracts. We said we only can't access our own data. Forget
Mm.
someone else sort of taking that data.
Right.
In the manufacturing world, just accessing data from our own machines had been a problem. So there, frankly, right now our factories are sold. They're not connected to the World Wide Web or the internet and all
Mm.
that.
Mm.
At this point in time, data security is not such a huge problem that
Okay.
my boiler data can be stolen by some hacker. Obviously, it's
Mm.
possible,
Mm.
but right
Mm.
now, not a huge thing. I
Mm.
think right now the focus of data security is far more on the consumer side. Privacy law is coming. India is launching its own law. So we are working. So and there again, we have a CISO organization. Every company has its Chief Information Security Officer. So we work with them to say what are some of the other interesting analytical models can we make so
Mm.
that the CISO organization can be enabled to take data security much better. So again, data security is the sort of, as a functional owner, it's the CISO organization. They need to do it. So
Mm.
many a times, if you can think about us as a coach sitting behind, helping them do their job better.
Mm.
So we are neither a batsman or a bowler or a wicketkeeper, but we are a coach making them better at their own job is the way to
Mm.
think about us.
Mm. What a great response. Thank you. The other aspect of data always is one is, to analyze what has happened, but the other is also to do predictive analytics. Can you talk about how predictive analytics is used across different sectors to anticipate market trends?
Absolutely, Ashu. In fact, that is I would feel that, that is probably the most meaningful analytics, because in our sort of world, we say descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive, that you can
Hmm,
even tell what to do.
correct.
So while descriptive is describing what's happening, diagnostic is giving you a sense of, yeah, this is why it may happen. But predictive on what's going to happen and what can you do about it, and prescriptive, let's do this, are the ways to create real value. And
Hmm,
frankly, our focus is on these two. So
hmm,
I was telling you about the factory example. So
hmm,
in many cases, we have created some prescriptive models where now the operator doesn't have to do anything. All the insight is acted upon by the machine itself. So the model will create some possibility and actually act on it, and the operator can doesn't need to do. It's almost think about it as a self-driving car, that the driver can intervene if they need, but they don't have to. It's
hmm,
visible to them. They can see what's happening, but they have so much trust in the system now that they know that this work is happening. So in
hmm,
some cases we have gotten into prescriptive, but in many more cases it's more predictive. We are going to predict that in this bath temperature is going to spike. Why don't you do something about it so that you can control the temperature? So
hmm,
those are the types of things in manufacturing, so predictive maintenance, so there is a machine which might fail. So can we predict that something is going to fail, and we can tell them to do it? There's an electrolyzer in our soda ash business. Lots of membranes. Any one membrane failing can just bring the thing to the halt. So we are
hmm,
able to predict something going to fail, and the people can take action proactively. So I think proactive action taking is really the where the value gets added in any such analytics use case.
hmm,
So that's what we do. Whether it is your customers, who's going to buy, who do you send the campaign to, um, who is going to do a fraud, can we catch them so that we don't reimburse them in our insurance business? So everywhere we are trying to predict something and telling people, can you prevent that from happening or enable that to happen, depending
hmm.
on what that
Well
activity
said.
is.
Well said. Pankaj, I have time for two more questions. One question relating to work, and the last question will be for you. Uh, what role do you see data ethics and responsible AI playing in the future of data-driven decision making?
Yeah, so I think this is being talked about a lot, and all of our models and everything is trained on past data. We all know that.
Hmm,
So I think many a times we as humans have not been ethical, moral, inclusive, and so on and so forth. So we
hmm,
need to be cautious that if we are training a model on past data, we
hmm,
need to look at ourselves to say, is that really, true? And we have had many examples where we have seen in the US where there was discrimination happening based on color or religion and all of that. I mean, there's very much data available. So I think just being conscious that if you're training something, what data are you giving? And if you think
hmm,
that the data is sort of skewed, can you give more data to make it more balanced? So I think
hmm,
just the data ingestion into the model to make it more agnostic to biases is one thing that I think everyone is becoming more and more conscious about.
hmm,
And two, I think you got to have your people with the right moral code of conduct, like we always say that the machine is dumb. It's the
hmm.
humans which talk. So many a time
Correct.
people say, you know what, the data is telling me this. I said, data doesn't tell anything. It's you who's telling it, and
Hmm,
you bring your own biases in interpreting the data. So I think
correct.
one is of course the technical part of it, but the other is just hiring the right people with the right intent. I think that cannot be understated at all.
Very well said. And my last question for you, Pankaj, you're a marathon runner, you're cycling, you play badminton, and yet you're in this very intense data-driven analytics role. How do you keep yourself motivating and learning continuously?
Yeah. So first of all, I don't look at anything as intense. I look at everything as fun. So
Okay.
to me, I think prioritization is critical.
Mm,
I think just focusing on a few things. In fact, I would claim that I have a lot of time all the time.
mm,
And the reason for that is I have prioritized and I have delegated. At the same time, making sure that I'm in control of what's going on. So I think that's something that, each of us can figure out how to learn, because the more you are in the detail, the less you are able to see the big picture and make outside connections. So for
right.
me, work and life are all integrated. So my
Mm,
marathon runs are all about conversation, which is talking to people. And on those talks, I'm sometimes talking technology, I'm talking leadership, depending on who they are. I'm talking to youngsters, what they are thinking about Gen Z. So yesterday, someone was asking me about work-life balance, and I said, I don't know where work ends and life begins. Because for
mm,
me, I am one integrated whole. I have one optimization equation, which is my own purpose.
mm,
What part of it is work and life, I don't know. Now, everyone will be different. I can't say for others, but for me, it's one integrated life. This conversation for me, someone could say it's a personal conversation. conversation. For me, frankly, it's a professional conversation as well, because the question that you asked, the ideas that you have triggered in my mind, I'm quite sure you have made me a better individual who, when I go to office now, will behave differently than if I wasn't doing it. So I think in my mind, I am one integrated human being with one consolidated string theory equation of my own, and everything else is subservient to that.
What a great response. And on that note, Pankaj, I just want to say thank you so much for speaking to me about your own journey. I just love the modesty that you have brought to this incredible conversation that I've had with you. Thank you for talking to me about data analytics and data science. We covered a lot of ground. We spoke about culture, we spoke about security, we spoke about ethics, we spoke about AI, we spoke about customer experience. You gave some amazing examples that I'm sure my viewers and listeners will remember when they listen to this conversation. Thank you again for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.